In a small, old house on the edge of a village, a cat named Mimi lived a cozy and relaxed life. Mimi, with her shiny orange fur and sharp eyes, always carried herself with an air of elegance, as if she were the true mistress of the house. However, the real owner of the house was a kind old woman who loved Mimi dearly. The old woman prepared delicious meals for Mimi every day and often groomed her, making Mimi look radiant and well-kept. But this warm little house had another uninvited guest, a small mouse named Mick. Mick was a gray little mouse, quick and clever, who had made a home in a tiny hole in the corner of the kitchen. He was a natural adventurer, filled with curiosity about the world, but he had to be extremely cautious to avoid being caught by Mimi. Every night, when the old woman turned off the lights and went to bed, Mick would begin his nightly foraging. One evening, the old woman accidentally spilled a jar of honey in the kitchen. The sweet scent filled the air, catching Mick's attention. He peeked out of his hole and spotted a small puddle of honey on the floor. Thinking it was a rare delicacy, Mick crept out carefully to take a taste. Just as Mick was about to lick the honey, Mimi sprang out of the shadows, blocking his path. "Ah, it's you again, Mick," Mimi said, narrowing her eyes with a touch of mockery in her voice. "Did you think I'd let you get away with this?" Although startled, Mick quickly composed himself and said with a smile, "Mimi, there's so much honey here. Why not let me have just a little? We could coexist peacefully." Mimi scoffed, "I'm the ruler of this house, and you're nothing but a thief." With that, she pounced towards Mick. But Mick, ever nimble, dodged her attack and dashed back into his hole. Mimi slapped the floor in frustration, realizing she had missed her target once again. After this failure, Mimi decided to change her tactics. She began observing Mick's behavior and noticed that he was most active at night and particularly fond of the kitchen's food. Mimi devised a plan and set a trap for Mick. She placed a piece of cheese in the middle of the floor and pretended to nap on the windowsill. Mick, peeking out from his hole, saw the cheese. He sniffed the air and sensed that something wasn't quite right. Circling cautiously, he noticed the fine string attached to the cheese, connected to a makeshift cage. "Mimi's trying to outsmart me again," Mick thought with a grin. Using a twig, Mick triggered the trap, causing the cage to fall with a loud snap. Startled, Mimi woke up, only to find the cheese still inside the cage and Mick nowhere to be seen. This made Mimi both annoyed and impressed by Mick's wit. One day, the old woman brought home a new resident, a parrot named Pip. Pip was a bright and lively bird who loved mimicking human speech and quickly took an interest in Mimi and Mick's game of cat and mouse. It didn't take long for Pip to notice their dynamic, and the clever bird decided to join in the fun. "You know, Mimi," Pip said one day, "you could try using psychology against Mick. He's a curious little mouse, and if you build a maze, he won't be able to resist exploring it." Mimi found the idea intriguing and got to work constructing a simple maze using cardboard boxes and string. When Mick discovered the maze, he couldn't resist the urge to explore. However, his quick thinking helped him navigate through the maze and escape with the cheese Mimi had placed inside. Mimi was left frustrated once again, while Pip laughed uncontrollably at the scene. One rainy afternoon, a storm rolled in, and water began leaking through the roof of the house, soaking the kitchen storeroom. The old woman, worried about her food supplies being ruined, started moving the grains to a drier part of the house. Mick saw this and felt that he should do something to help. After all, the house was his home too. However, the heavy grain sacks were far beyond Mick's strength. Reluctantly, he turned to Mimi for help. "Mimi," Mick began, I know we're usually adversaries, but this is an emergency. We need to work together to help the old woman." At first, Mimi hesitated, but she eventually agreed. "Fine, Mick, but don't think about trying to trick me during this." Together, Mimi and Mick began moving the grains in their own ways, working as a team for the first time. By the end of the day, they had managed to save most of the food supplies. The old woman, touched by the unusual teamwork between the cat and the mouse, prepared a special dinner for both of them. From that day on, something changed between Mimi and Mick. While they still enjoyed their occasional chases and playful competitions, a bond of mutual respect and friendship began to form. Pip, ever the mischief maker, became their mediator, adding laughter and joy to their little household. Over time, Mimi came to realize that life wasn't just about chasing and conquering, it could also be about sharing and understanding. Mick, on the other hand, learned the value of gratitude and cooperation. He no longer lived in constant hiding but instead became an active and helpful member of the household. And so, the unlikely trio, Mimi, Mick, and Pip, found a way to live together, bringing harmony and happiness to their small but lively home. Do you still like today's story? If you like, please remember to subscribe to this channel and click the like icon. You can receive notifications and hear the latest stories as soon as possible. Good night, my baby.